Assalamu alaikum and good morning from Gaza, Palestine, the Islamic University. We're almost done with our English poetry course. And today, as you can see here, displayed Palestinian poetry. I know I sound to be unexcited, but I am very excited about this session in particular. In my classes, I try to introduce them to the students comparatively, so at least you have an idea. It would be really bad if you finish a degree in English literature with no knowledge about Palestinian literature, being Palestinians. And it's a chance for other people probably watching us to know something about Palestinian literature. We can't do everything in one class. I've been referring to Palestinian literature many times so far, but today we have two special poems, two poems that I love very, very much. One is by Linah Al-Sharif, who's a Palestinian now residing in Qatar. She's a former student of the English department and a friend. She's really a wonderful poet, a promising poet. And also Susan Abulhawa, the Palestinian-American novelist and poet and intellectual. We're lucky also to be studying her poem. We'll see about that now. Okay, first we're going to begin with Linah Al-Sharif. I'll do a reading very quickly, and one or two of you to read this. So the title is Gluten-Free Manaish. I know that my grandma will never approve my gluten-free manaish. My zip-back thyme brought from Palestine, my extra virgin olive oil shipped from Palestine, my oven electric with a timer, my dough kneaded with a hand mixer. But she also didn't like it when I said stuff like, your pies are better made, are better because they were baked in the womb of the earth. She hated it when I said, your thyme grew on rainwater, wild and free, taken from the root of the land, its aroma and originality. She shut me up when I said, the olive oil came from the purest of lands, watered by the tears of angels and prophets. The earliest witness of our existence, a symbol of peace, long robbed from. She took a bite and said, it's food, not a poem. Don't preach history, and next time, don't burn the dough. Okay, go on. So that's dough, kneaded, angels.
I know that my grandma.
The title, please.
Gluten-free manaish.
Okay.
I know that my grandma will never approve my gluten-free manaish, my zip-pack thyme brought from Palestine, my extra virgin olive oil shipped from Palestine, my oven electric with a timer, my dough kneaded with a hand mixer. But she also didn't like it when I said stuff like, your pies are better because they were baked in the womb of the earth. She hated it when I said, your thyme grew in rainwater, wild and free, took it from the root of the land, its aroma and originality. She shut me up when I said, the olive oil came from the purest of lands watered by the tears of angels and prophets. The earliest witness of our existence, a symbol of peace long robbed from. She took a bite and said, it's food, not a poem. Don't preach history, and next time, don't bend the dough.
Okay, one more, please.
Gluten-free manaish. I know that my grandma will never approve my gluten-free manaish. My zip-back thyme brought from Palestine, my extra virgin olive oil shipped from Palestine, my oven electric with a timer, my dough kneaded with a hand mixer. But she also didn't like it when I said stuff like, your pies are better because they were baked in the womb of the earth. She hated it when I said, your thyme grew on rainwater, wild and free, took from from the root of the land, its aroma and originality. She shut me up when I said the olive oil came from the purest of lands watered by the tears of angels and prophets, the earliest witness of our existence, a symbol of peace, long robbed from. She took a bite and said, "It's food, not a poem. Don't preach history, and next time, don't burn the dough."
Okay, so don't burn the dough, yeah? That's your grandma, she knows. She always does. So, if you have something, anything that kind of attracted you to this poem, what is it? Like, what do you find peculiar, interesting, uncanny, intriguing, attractive, different? Because this is, we'll talk about the features of Palestinian poetry. Please, Amal.
It kind of has a dialogue beside it.
Okay, so between
The grandma and the poetry.
and,
Hey, grandma.
you know, there is the granddaughter and the grandmother, people belonging to two different eras, probably a boomer and a millennial. Please.
Study food in the poem itself.
What's that?
Food. Food, including food in the poem.
Is food just included in the poem?
It's unnormal.
Or is it a poem about food?
No, it's the subject matter. It's unnormal, like to add the theme of food.
I don't think it's anormal, but it's not that common. Yeah, but people talk about food all the time. But here, this is not just food mentioned. Food is the essence, is the poem. It's even in the title.
I noticed that the people in the exile always kind of over-dramatize anything from that film.
Okay, that's a very interesting thing. You know, we're here paying a heavy price for being Palestinians under Israeli occupation. We're suffering, right? But sometimes people outside, they dramatize this, they romanticize this. I just want to be there just for a moment, for a day, just to, you know, smell the air or taste something. Please.
It's kind of funny to see how she tried to modernize the.
Wow,
the old or
that's a good
traditional
word,
food,
yeah.
Because like there are many food that we in our day like people call them names. They used to call them names, and now we're just giving it another modern name just to make it, you know, just
Look cool,
exactly
yeah?
look
Oh,
cool.
okay.
But it's the same.
Okay, so I like your ideas. No, you know, gluten-free in the past 10 years or so, it's been, you know, gluten is a substance in wheat, in food, in bread, that some causes, I think, allergy or something to people. And it's now a this is, again, I don't criticize people's choices, whatever they do.
It's a trend.
But now it's a trend, and it's a now multi-billion, if not dollar business around the world. People want everything to be gluten-free, and, you know, you do that for them. And Manaish, so there is this kind of paradox here. There's Manaish is deeply rooted in Palestinian history, or at least the history of the Middle East, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. And there is the gluten-free. This Manaish is without gluten. You know, gluten is extracted. It's modern. It's cool. It's the fashion. But also, I find it very interesting how the word. You know, I know many people in Gaza, like many, especially ladies, they wouldn't say Managish. You know, the original word. They would rather go for Manaish, which is the cool again word. I think almost 20 years ago, not many people in Gaza were saying Manaish or Alam or Elli or Ultillo. And this change is fascinating in many ways. I'm not sure if I mentioned this before. In Hebrew, the same thing happened. Sometimes, remember we said in English they had the ch sound in the past, like German nicht or something, and then they dropped the sound and the letters remain. That's one reason why we have so many silent letters in English, because English developed. Now in Hebrew, they had the sound, which is Semitic, which is Middle Eastern. And because now so many Jews are coming from the West, and it's very difficult for them to say the sound, getting it here from I don't know where. And because people like in Israel, Jews in power are mostly Western Jews, Ashkenazi Jews. So by time, because those people couldn't say the sound, and in order to integrate, there is racism. There's racism everywhere in Israel. There is, you know, classes. If you are Western Jew, white, blonde, blue eyes, you know, and then there is. you know, Jews coming from other countries, and then Arab Jews, and then black Jews, and then Arab Christians and Arab Muslims and Druze, and so there's this. So in order for those people to integrate, by time they started to drop the a. So when if it's like Arabim or Atzor, okay, so nobody looks like, who is this backward person saying ah sound? In order to integrate with the mainstream current, by time even Arabs started to drop the ah sound. And this is happening here in Gaza. It's been happening in the past. It sounds more, you know, it sounds cooler nowadays for girls to say Allu iltullu alam. It sounds cooler. It's like, what? Who? She? How? What do you think of Khadra, for example? She's cool. She's cool. But she says managish. She says ammi, right? And this is bad in a way. It's interesting linguistically speaking, but it's bad to judge people by their, you know, appearance or the way they speak or accent or etc. So the poet here, the young poet, chooses. I know some people inherently say people from Jaffa originally or something. They're more into, you know, the a than the ga. But the gluten-free is in itself something modern, something our parents don't know. Most of us don't know, let alone, you know, our grandparents. And again, the Manaish itself is, again, like you said, is an attempt from the young female to sound cool, to modernize Palestine, you know, to appeal to probably to foreigners, to appeal to the younger generation. So I know that my grandma will never approve my gluten-free Manaish, and that's, you know, what grandmas do. My zipped back thyme brought from Palestine. The thyme, you know, the food is brought from Palestine. Everything is Palestinian at home. My extra virgin olive oil. Now, many times people meet, like when I was in Malaysia, in the UK, somewhere else, and people, when they knew that I'm Palestinian, they would always ask me about the oil. And many people wanted me to bring them oil because they loved it. They, you know, they think it's magic. And I think our grandmas also think olive oil is magical, you know. Yes. There's this meme I complained about to my grandma about a heartache, and she asked me to rub it with olive oil. شكيت همي لستي قالت لي دهن عليه زيت, in a way. So the people would usually ask me, what is virgin olive oil? And I would say, I honestly don't know. For us, it's all oil. You could say this is from this area, this is from that area, this is from the West Bank, this is from Gaza, this is from East Gaza, you know? But honestly, we don't know. And this is very interesting because in many ways, this is a marketing technique, a marketing gimmick. You sell oil, everybody's selling olive oil, you want to sound cool, you know, big businesses, it's like, okay, we have an idea. Virgin olive oil. Whoa, and then everybody is doing virgin olive oil, and then okay. Extra virgin olive oil. The problem is that with time, what are we going to do? Like, are we going to witness super extra virgin olive oil, duper, super duper extra? I don't know. Maybe. But for us Palestinians, it's oil. It's part of our life, right? Shipped from Palestine, an oven. But look at again the paradox, how paradoxical we can be. The oven is electric and with a timer. So it's not that it's only electric. Instead of the clay olive oil that our grandmas used, it's electric, and it also has a timer. So you could do your stuff and then go watch an episode of, I don't know, Grey's Anatomy that doesn't want to end, or anything else. And electric, and the dough kneaded with a hand mixer also. You know, the paradox. I think there is some kind of a play on the word time, okay? Thank God we don't have cats here. And also the word needed, because needed, N-E-E-D-E-D, also need, you know, to do the olive oil. Okay, fun. But she also, my grandma, didn't like it when I said stuff like, your pies are better because they were baked in the womb of the earth. Grandma, you pies, oh. And look at beautiful personification of our land, the earth, as a mother, a loving mother that has a womb that can give and give children and children. She hated it when I said, your time grew on rainwater, wild and free, taken from the root of the land, its aroma and originality. Wow. She shut me up, when I said the olive oil came from the purest of lands, watered by the tears of angels and prophets. ترويه دموع الملائكة والأنبياء. The earliest, and this is, grandma, this is evidence we exist. This is evidence that the land is ours, that the land is for the Palestinians. The earliest witness of our existence, a symbol of peace, long robbed from. And there is interruption here.
She shut her up.
So there's an interruption here. So she wants to go on and poeticize and romanticize and turn everything into politics, into typical grandma stuff. But she also didn't like it. She took a bite and said, it's food, not a poem. Don't preach history, and next time, don't burn the dough. Next time, don't burn your manaish. So even with the electric oven, with the timer, the electric timer and everything, we're not sure. You have to taste it, right? Yeah, first. But again, grandma knows. If she says something, it must be it. I found this a beautiful poem. Really, really beautiful poem. Simple, but deep and profound. In many ways, there's this generational gap. There's a chasm, actually. The conflict between the young and the old, and how the young try to appeal to, you know, I'm not saying this is wrong to appeal to people like, you know, out there, Palestinians, non-Palestinians, people who speak in English, to try to sound cool, to try to bring Palestine closer to them and bring them closer to Palestine. But preaching history here, turning everything into politics, every bite, every meal, every food, every topic, which is something we do, is something that does not appeal to the older generation, especially our grandparents. For them, Palestine is Palestine. The land is ours. You don't have to bring archaeological evidence. You don't have to look at an olive tree as evidence. Grandmother knows. Probably I mentioned Darwish, who again came to Palestine. There was a Jewish shepherd from Yemen who thought that the remains of Mahmoud Darwish's village were the remains of a Roman village, because again the Zionists erased 2,000 years of history, just altogether gone. And Darwish says that the land does not belong to those who inject it with artificial meanings, those who want archaeological evidence to prove their connection to the land. The land belongs to those who know it's going to rain just from smelling the air. Just you feel it, you know. And I've experienced this. I'm sure some of you experienced this. Sometimes, like in the past, you would go out and then your grandma says, hey, aren't you going to wear anything heavy? Say, it's sunny or it's not cloudy, but it's going to rain. And then 2 hours later, it's like she owns the clouds. And it never, like almost never happens. Like a grandma says it's going to rain and it doesn't. It's like, again, the clouds like, oh, okay, grandma, just for you this time. Honestly. And this happens here. Their connection is natural, is not artificial. Their connection comes with every breath they take, with everything they do, just because they are Palestinian. And on the other hand, we've seen this, and you'll see it, how Israel tries to, as an occupation, tries to inject, artificial meanings. There has been a lot of research done, a lot of digging done just to bring something. And 3 years ago, Netanyahu, there was this kid who went with his father somewhere, and he bought a souvenir, a coin souvenir, and I think his dad posted something, and somebody took it and said, yeah, little kid found this coin from 3,000 years. Yes, Israel was here first. And then Netanyahu himself took this picture and he posted it and boasted about, this is evidence. Oops, it's fake. It's just a souvenir. And even, the half shekel, there's a half shekel, the lyre there, the musical instrument, it's fake. Somebody came in the 70s and he's like, okay, what should I do just to connect people more here? He said, I found this. This is from 3 years ago. It turned out to be fake. Google, why is there a fake symbol on Israeli half shekel or coin? You'll be stunned. Recently, in the past 5 years, Haaretz post so many articles about this interesting, revising history. The Zionists tried to prove that when there was always enmity between, for example, the Jews and the original, the Canaanites and the natives of Palestine. Now, new research says no, they coexisted. They lived together, they traded stuff. So while Israel tries to do this, to modernize in its way, to inject Palestine with technology, with archaeological finds, and also Israel, and this is a fact, Israel is also destroying every possible Palestinian connection to the land. Israel has destroyed so many historical places. So to sever this relationship. Now the young generation is doing something interesting to try to bring this back. To try to bring, don't we feel happy, when we come across Palestine in Othello? Go to your grandma and say, Ma, Grandma, I have a piece of evidence that Palestine existed. Like, even Shakespeare said Palestine. Here, look, Othello. She's like, what? She doesn't need Othello. She doesn't need Shakespeare. She doesn't need gluten-free menaish. Or even the oil, which is again the most significant. And we talk about the oil here in Palestine. We talk about, again, man and land coming together. Because the result is trees, the olive trees, the symbol of Palestine and Palestinians. So I find it very interesting how the grandma is trying to prevent the girl, the young lady, from turning everything into politics. And this is actually one thing that people say that is not cool, good about Palestinian poetry or literature. It's too political. They say Palestinian poetry is too political. Of course it's too political. Don't be defensive here. We are under occupation. Everybody has been influenced in so many ways, in ways you can't imagine by the Israeli occupation. And for us, personal is political and political is personal. We'll talk about this when it comes to Susan Abulhawa just now. I'll just come to this point later on. Okay, so what other features of Palestinian poetry or literature can you find here? You mentioned dialogue here, you mentioned food, and the cultural heritage, the grandma, the existence of the grandma being there, like, all protective, all guiding us, giving us advice. What else? What other features?
I think that you have mentioned it, like the originality of the things or the items are mentioned in the poem. It's like the manaish, the grandma, and the water, and the land. So I like this.
These are cultural references,
Yeah.
always there. Always there. They're part of our life.
The word manaish itself, not using like pastries or something equivalent.
Okay, not foreignizing this term. And it's not translated, by the way. You can guess, but if you Google it, you'll find the term. But not many non-Arab speakers can know that this is what the context can tell. So you use the word, the Arab word. I'll come back to this with Susan's poem. The word is not foreignized or even transliterated or translated.
I actually find it interesting, the contrast image between Linah's poem and there I said poem. We have, by that is
Yeah.
the poet. We have two generations, the elder one and the younger one.
Yeah,
but
interesting.
We have contrast images. Here, the girl is, the girl keeps mentioning the land and the originality, and she's trying to give evidence. But there, the father was trying to
Do that.
connect
The
land
kids
with
the kids were, oblivious. They were like
But
reluctant.
here the grandma is the one who takes the bite, and then the sons
Who asked
for
They want to eat.
for the food.
Don't also, that's a very fair, thank you very much. That's a very good point here. Don't forget that probably this person is outside Palestine now. He's an outsider, a native indigenous, but outsider, can't be in Palestine for a reason, Israel. But that man, a Zionist, who was born in Europe, is in Palestine. Thank you very much. That's a really, really interesting point. One more thing, please. The sense of okay, seriousness. So the old are serious. Okay, so how's that helping the poem? Okay, interesting.
How the grandma was, she said at the end that it's food. Don't make a poem from food.
Okay, so she doesn't want her granddaughter to romanticize this, to turn food into politics. Just yeah, it's not food. Food is not evidence for her. Although for us, there's a huge fight over hummus. Okay? And even now falafel and shakshuka and all these kinds of foods. Please?
The use of foreshadowing. At the first line, she said that my grandma will never approve this. The last line, she approved that she didn't approve.
Okay, but I don't think this is a feature of Palestinian poetry that we try to foreshadow, but yeah, possible. Although foreshadowing is something more into fiction rather than poetry, to guess what's coming.
That young generations of Palestine are always nostalgic to the past. And,
Nostalgia as a theme, yeah.
Create this perfect idea about the past and Palestine before occupation, although it could be not perfect. And the image we have in mind is that Palestinians were living in peace, they all loved each other.
Promoting the concept of sumud. Again, especially people who say this, especially people who are in the diaspora, people who can't be here. They're doing an amazing job, activism and BDS and everything, boycotting Israel. But again, the thing is that reality is different. Reality is a lot harsher than you can ever imagine. Finally, somebody here?
I like the word free using in the title. It's like that we can use this word even in the poem that related to food.
Okay. So, and free here, what does it mean when you say gluten free? Without. So without, but again, freedom is something we seek. So is it probably connected? Possible. So I raised two questions here I want you to think of. This poem is about rootedness to Palestine, but it's also about generational chasm, the gap between the generation, the young, the old. And then there is, how is the young lady in the poem trying to modernize Palestine? We already mentioned this in passing. Anything? Shall we move? Yes. Shall I move? Or yes, you want to say something? Okay, I'll move if you say so. Okay, there's this poem by Susan Abulhawa, the Palestinian writer, novelist, intellectual. She's the author of Mornings in Jenin. Please read this novel. Read it in English. It's one of the best. There's a video here I want you to watch. Already posted it on our Facebook group. Okay, so like I said, our second poem is by Susan Abulhawa. It's called Wala. Let's watch and listen and then do some discussion.
It's 3 a.m. in the cattle cage. The line is long and thick with bodies. We wait. A jibneh sandwich with cucumber in a plastic bag clutched in your callous laborer's hand. Your wife prepared your breakfast and your lunch. She was up before you and together you prayed and pre-dawn salah. She kissed your face and said, Allah ma'ak ya habibi. Allah be with you, my love. You kiss the faces of your sleeping babies. You haven't seen them awake in months, and you wonder, has Walid's voice begun to crack yet? Have Wishdad's hips begun to flare? How big was Sureya's smile when she came home with her report card? It's 4 a.m. in the time for a smoke. But who the hell can afford that? You stare at the graffiti beyond the iron bars holding you in, written just for you, written by Zionist settlers sucking the breath from your lungs. You understand the meaning of their English words. Die, sand niggers. Sometimes you pine for that too. It's 5 a.m. in the cattle cage. The soldiers arrive. The line loosens. You take one step forward, propelled by the weight of the bodies behind you. Your jibna sandwich with cucumber in a plastic bag is crushed. It never survives. It's 7 a.m. in the cattle cage. Now is your turn. You produce your papers, unfold, refold, eyes down, heart down. Your shoes are down on their luck, but you're out of the line now. 15 men before you were pulled aside and you tried not to look. Tried not to hear the one yelling, "Don't hit me." It's 7:30 a.m. on the cattle bus and you ride. The country they stole from you speeds outside your window and you imagine the man you would have been. The man you should have been out there riding the family steed. The thoroughbred mares your grandfather raised and nurtured and loved in a Palestine, unraped, unstolen. It's 8 a.m. You get off the cattle bus. Your crushed jibna sandwich with cucumber in a plastic bag in one hand, your eyes down, your heart down. You put your toolbox down to knock on the Zionist settler's back door where the help goes, but the Zionist settler boss man yells, "Wala! Mish hon al-yom." Not there today, boy. And all you can do is thank Allah that your wife and your babies are not there to hear them call you Wala.
This is a poem from My Voice Sought the Wind, Susan Abulhawa, published by Just World Books. What do you think? So Susan Abulhawa's poem, Wala, it's not Wala, of course, it's Wala. You have to read it to know that this is not. I'm sure some of you experienced this with their parents. Personally, I had this experience many times, many years. My dad would be waking up early, very early in the morning and go work inside in the occupied territories by Israel. And we wouldn't see him sometimes for weeks. I know people whose father would just go and spend weeks and weeks and months and some even years. Just, again, it's like an odyssey. But this is an odyssey to, not to seek immortality or just to bring food, to put food on the table, to feed your kids, to seek a livelihood. And because of Israel, this has turned into an odyssey. I'll do some commentary very quickly, and I'll see what things you want to talk about, and probably we can discuss Palestinian features. Of course, two poems can never summarize everything about Palestinian features, but this is interesting because we're studying two poems by two female poets. I'm also going to comment on the use of Arabic in this is originally written in English. Why include some Arabic words? Some of them are not even transliterated or translated. Transliterated but not translated. So the opening here, when we talk about 3 a.m. and you are waiting, queuing in a long line at the Israeli military checkpoint so you can go to work inside in a settlement or somewhere. You have no choice but to do this or else you would starve. If you're there at 3 a.m., then probably you woke up at 2:30, and your wife woke up probably half an hour or an hour earlier. That's really, really crazy. Nobody should be forced to do this all their life. And the cattle cage, cattle, cows, and sheep, and that's how Israel is dealing with Palestine. We've seen the pictures in the video. These are like inhumane practices against native Palestinians. The line, remember in the holomen, we said the long vowels sometimes add more pain and suffering. It's not like, it just ends. The line is long and thick with bodies, and you wait. If you notice this kind of free verse poetry, you don't have to stick to any of the rules, but it's still poetic, still probably more poetic than the classical poetry. So you wait is just one whole stanza here. Because, again, most of what we do, Palestinians, is just waiting for the Israeli occupation to end, waiting for the Israeli bombing to end, waiting for Israel to open the checkpoint, to open the borders, to allow us to travel, to grant us permits, to let us be. Okay? A gibney sandwich with cucumber in a plastic bag, clutched in your calloused laborer's hand. And I find this to be very interesting. The gibney sandwich is a simple thing. But what are you doing to it? You're clutching, you're holding tightly. It's like a dear friend of yours. It's a friend, it's your company, it's your companion here. And the gibney sandwich is Arabic, it's not translated. You would, if you don't know Arabic, you can guess that this is some kind of food. But why is it not cheese sandwich? Why is it gibney? And gibney is West Bank pronunciation. In Gaza we say jibna. We also say albira, it's albiri. Again, the wife plays the traditional Palestinian woman role. She's probably stay-at-home mom. It's not mentioned here, but she wakes up early to prepare the food. But her role in comforting the husband and being there and supporting him and being there for the kids is interesting. Many people would say this is typical situation. Traditionally, this is the typical situation, but that situation itself is changing, especially with the fact that the poet is female, is a woman. Okay? And together you prayed a pre-dawn salah. And again, how religion and spirituality is significant here. And the word salat instead of prayer, because prayer is not like the prayer we do. Prayer is like, you say a prayer. So another word that is not used in English, salat is the Arabic word for worshipping together. She kissed you, and again, more of Arabic language transliterated and also translated here. Allah ma'aka habibi. Allah be with you, my love. The word Allah, it's there in the dictionary. Many people in America and Europe would know that Allah means God, but she's not using the English word at the same time. And probably this is a very sad scene here. You kiss the faces of your sleeping babies. You haven't seen them awake in months. And probably this is the toughest thing ever. You have kids because you love kids, because you want, to bring up new generation. Because kids are life, they give us everything we want, almost everything. They're beautiful, they make us laugh, they make us happy, they make us reconnect. The child is the father of man. But imagine having kids and not being able to see every achievement, the first step, the first stutter, the first word, the first insult, the first fall, the first, achievement. Sometimes this is heartbreaking, even when you imagine criminals in prison not seeing their kids grow up. You wonder, has Walid's voice begun to crack yet? Have Wujdan's hips begun to flare? How big was Suraya's smile when she came home with her report card, with her certificate, full mark, distinction, coming home? But the father is not here, not dead, not in prison. He's at work, he can't be here. He goes out early in the morning, he comes back late at night. That's heartbreaking. The questions here are significant. And again, the clock moves. In the poem, quickly, but it moves. Again, still, you wait. The line gets even longer and longer. And look at, again, the long vowels making this. Of course, if you wake up early in the morning, you're here at 8 o'clock and you don't feel like talking. Imagine waking up early in the morning at around 2 and you wouldn't be, you don't want to talk. But this is a situation where talk is also could be something dangerous. It could be spotted by any of the soldiers. You could be, and what are you going to talk about? How this humiliation, this utter agony and suffering and pain is okay, is fine, is good for you or somebody, what are you going to talk about? So few speak because you're not in the mood to speak, but also because speaking could be taken against you. Why are you speaking? What are you speaking about? You could be punished for this, just for speaking. Okay? You see, and all around you is pain and suffering. You don't have a mirror to check whatever, but you see the pain, the fatigue, the suffering, the agony in the faces of other people around you. And you don't want to see that, so you look away. But wherever you go, there's suffering, there's pain. It's not like just only here in the faces of people. And pine for smoke. I find this very interesting. It's just, you want to smoke. All you want to do is smoke. But this is a luxury. It's not because it's money, you can't, but who the hell, swear word here, who the hell can afford that? It's not about smoking being expensive. It's you're not in the mood, and also it's too crowded. Everybody is pushing and pulling, and you don't want to hurt others. You can't even afford a smoke. You look away again. You stare at the graffiti beyond the bars, because you saw the pictures. You just here like in a path, and there are what? Bars from the left, bars from the right. You look through this because there will always be Jewish-only settlers and blocks, military outposts, military checkpoints. And because the settlers know you would be passing from here, they will always try to assert their, what's that called? This is our place here. So they write on the walls insults, threats, graffiti behind the walls, written just for you, written by Zionist settlers sucking the breath from your lungs. What's the name of those creatures in Harry Potter? Dementors, So the settlers have taken everything, the land, the crops, the roads, Palestine, air, its produce, everything. And they're even so greedy they want to suck the breath out of your lungs. What have they written on the wall? Stuff in English. They're not native to the land. I know some of them started to write in Hebrew recently, but basically it was mainly English because they hail from Brooklyn, from New York, from England, from Brazil, from around the world, so they use English, not even Hebrew. And you understand this because probably you have asked, or because you have a degree in English, but you have no job. Die, sand niggers. And niggers is a horrible, horrible, horrible racist word. You should never use it. But white supremacists, racists would use this to describe black people in America. And about Arabs, that's why it's called the N-word. You say, he said the N-word, she said the N-word, which is horrible. Some people are digging actually a tape after Trump. Some claim that he once used the N-word. And this is a $1 billion tape if somebody finds it. So Arabs are sand niggers because, of the desert, of the stereotypical images of Arabs and Muslims in the Middle East. So racist in America, racist in Europe, racist in Russia, racist here when they come to occupied Palestine. Once a racist, always a racist. And look at this heartbreaking. Sometimes you pine for that too. Sometimes you just want to die. You just want to die. You have nothing to lose. The humiliation, the pain, the suffering. It's 5 a.m. now. The soldiers arrive. Look, you've been there for 2 hours and then the soldiers arrive casually 2 hours later. The line loosens and you're propelled by the weight of the bodies. Look at the personification. Remember we said that jibna sandwich, you're clutching onto it. You're holding it very tightly. It's your lunch. It's from your wife. It connects you back home. It's your food. The jibna sandwich is crushed. It never survives. A personification of the sandwich. It never survives. And now it's 7 a.m. It's your turn. You produce your papers, refold, unfold. Look at how, again, the humiliation. You have to go through this. You have no choice. We've seen some people smile, when it's their turn, so they get to the soldier, they smile. That's not a smile of victory. This is just, we finished one episode of agony, pain, and suffering, and humiliation, utter humiliation, and we're starting a new one. That's the break. That's the Your eyes down, your heart down, even your shoes are against you. But because you're out of the line, probably 15 men before you were pulled aside. Now, in real life, man is and woman, we are curious. We want to look, at least, to examine, explore. And probably some of these men are your neighbors, your friends, probably your brothers, family members. They're pulled aside for no reason. I say this about the Israeli occupation. The worst thing about the Israeli occupation is that it's arbitrary, it's random. You don't know who they are going to kill or when or where, what they're going to destroy or when or where. Not that Israel has no system, because occupation is inherently, purely, utterly, absolutely evil. Never ever talk about occupation in a positive sense. Shouldn't be there. It's random in a systematic way. They want just to drive us crazy, to kick us out of our land. So people are pulled aside. You don't even dare to go protect them, to fight against their aggressors, to say something, to object, because that could be the end of you, could get you killed, sent to prison, or worse, having your work permit terminated. You don't want that. And you tried not to look, not to hear the one begging, don't hit me. 7:30 on the cattle bus. Even the bus is cattle bus. And look at this beautiful and sad scene here. You ride, the country they stole from you speeds outside your window, and you imagine the man you would have been, the man you should have been. I always encourage my students to just please think of yourself without the Israeli occupation. Especially those refugees. I know how many of you are refugees? Oh, that's like what? More than 50%. Whoa. Imagine if your parents, your grandparents were not pushed, were not forced, were not sent to Gaza at gunpoint. Where would you be now? What would you be studying, eating, married to? Who would you be married to? Living? Imagine this. Crazy, yeah? But it's a basic human right. Imagine this situation where you can have breakfast in Gaza, lunch in Hebron, dinner in Jerusalem, a sleepover in the Galilee. You can travel where you want, go where you want. No occupation, no restrictions, no borders. The man you could have been, please think about this and write about this. You have to write about this. The man you could have been, the man you should have been. Out there riding the family steed. Steed, you know? The horse. Poetic word for horse. And the thoroughbred mares, your grandfather, look at the existence of all the older generation always being there, caring, loving. Raised and nurtured and loved in a Palestine unraped, unstolen, unoccupied, unbrutalized. Fascinating, beautiful image but heartbreaking at the same time, because we can't have this. It's 8 a.m. You get off the cattle bus, you crush jibna sandwich, still have the sandwich because it's crushed, but you can eat it. Your wife made it with cucumber in a plastic bag in one hand, your eyes down, heart down, your pot, your toolbox down, and knock. It's all been like 5 hours because you're going to work and your boss is a Zionist, that you have no choice, and that's really a hard choice to make. Where the help goes. Now, if you're dealing with a sane person, if you have an appointment, they would be text you, hey, I'm sorry, I'm running late, I have to run this errand, can we meet tomorrow, you know? We have friends who don't do this at all, and we just kind of hate them. We have an appointment at 2 and they never show up, or they show up 2 hours late, and then, oh, sorry, okay, I'll be there in 1 hour. But we have decent people who have the courtesy of just texting, sorry, I'm running late, so you can at least grab something. So the settler could have texted him, contacted him, could have said that, don't come tomorrow, don't come here at least, and saved him all the pain, the suffering. And look at this. This is one whole stanza here. That's the heaviest butt you'd ever see anywhere. It's one paragraph, one stanza. So harsh, like a rock thrown at the man, at us, at readers. I could ask you in your exam to contextualize it. Just one word. And that's the beauty of modernist poetry, of free verse, of not having to stick to, you don't have to fill words, you don't want to use words. Words fail you. And this is the harshest but ever. The Zionist settler boss yells, Wala, مش هون اليوم. We make fun of this. Sometimes kids say, hey, Dad, somebody's at the door. You say, tell him Dad is not here. He says, Dad tells you he's not here. But this is harsh. This is the soldier himself, the settler himself, yelling, I'm not here. Go away. Not having the courtesy to open the door, to apologize, to speak politely. But this is occupation. It's evil. Turns people into monsters, absolute monsters. Go away. Wala. And look at this word. Wala is a word you use for kids. It means boy, yeah, but it's an insult when you use it to a grown-up. Ya Bennett, you don't like this sometimes. It's sexist, huh? It's horrible. Okay? And what would you do if somebody insults you? No violence, of course. But at least you just shout. Throw a rock, fight him back, challenge him. But you're deprived of your basic human right to resist, to fight back. You can't do that. If you do that, you're evil, you're a terrorist. And that's the harshest thing. Your inability to defend yourself, to fight for yourself. And when if I want to turn this into a short movie, I had this crazy idea. I always do. It's like I would imagine this man, the whole poem starting from a man sitting on somewhere on the pavement, altered, devastated, destroyed, hopeless, and eating bits and pieces of the jibna sandwich and everything going back into his mind. I really, really have this beautiful idea. So if some of you are into movie making, we can make something out of this. Because the insult here, this is a man, this is a father, he's somebody's son, somebody's brother, probably he's the coolest guy in the neighborhood, yeah? Everybody respects him, everybody looks up to him. Imagine the utter humiliation and insult here. And your inability to defend yourself. Say, hey, at least don't say wala. At least respect yourself. But the man here is helpless. And all you can do is thank Allah. And again, Allah, the Arabic word, Muslim word, that your wife and your babies are not there to hear you, to hear them. It's not just one man. So everybody calls you wala. Call you wala. It's a beautiful poem. Susan Abulhawa is a very fine writer, very fine person, very fine poet. So yeah, what do you have to say? Please.
I think it is very emotional and depressing, like poem.
Devastating, yeah, depressing, devastating, heartbreaking, heart-wrenching.
The thing is that no matter how much you hear this poem or you read it, every time you'll also be brought to tears because it's so emotional. It embodies every single part of his journey as like a whole entity or a whole, I don't know.
It's an odyssey. Everything is
exactly.
a fight against everything. Please.
The chronological order about the time make it more realistic.
Okay, so this is more realistic, especially for us Palestinians. Again, especially if your dad has ever worked inside, ask him about this journey. Or ask your mom. Or if you know somebody. There's a book by, Suad Al-Amiri, Sharon and my mother-in-law. She wrote a book, Nothing to Lose But Your Life, I think, or Murad, the other name. She actually, this is a crazy woman. This is an amazing woman. She dressed like a man, a laborer, and she woke up early in the morning and she took this same journey. With the guys, smuggled inside in order to find work. And she wrote a very, very interesting book. You should read it. I think it was translated into Arabic, but you read the English version. But again, look at how this touches everybody of us. Remember I said it's about, probably your father has not been in this situation. You don't know but someone closely related to you who has been here. But this is about us. We've seen everything about this. And this is why the occupation has impacted all our lives. Whether you know, whether you don't know. Consciously and unconsciously. Again, keep thinking of the alternatives. The person you could have been, the person you should have been. You can't travel because of Israel. You can't have medical treatment because of Israel. You can't be in Jerusalem. I want to be in Jerusalem. I just want to have fun there, fly kites without walls and without soldiers, without machine guns, without occupation. I want to go spend time, swim in the Dead Sea, or I don't know. But you can't have that. Our lives have been impacted by Israel Israel has interfered in every tiny little aspect of our lives. Even the food we eat, sometimes it's just because of Israel. The choices, what we read, what we do, why we are on social media, probably is partly because of Israel, because of the occupation. So this can be classified as resistance literature, because we want to expose, we want to resist, because writing itself is an act of life, an act of resistance. Writing, being there, just being there. Now, I'll talk about two things and see if you can have comments about the poem or talk about features, because this is an assignment. You need to write to find the features from Manaish by Linah Al-Sharif and Wala by Susan Abulhawa, and comment on them. Now, the use of Arabic I find it very interesting. Usually, look at this. When you write in a foreign language, probably you write for yourself because this is the language you feel comfortable, writing in, because you don't want your mom or dad or family members to read your stuff if you write in Arabic, your own mother language. But you also write to reach out to people, either to expose, like Palestinians do, expose the brutality of the Israeli occupation, or just simply to reveal or release or express yourself. Why would you use Arabic words and not translate them, for example? Now, there could be two reasons here, very briefly. Number one, usually your mother tongue is like your mother, it's a mother tongue. It feels protective. So I've noticed this. Many non-native speakers of English, when they write English, they tend to use, their own mother tongue. Sometimes, usually, I feel that because your language gives you protection and safety and security, gives you warmth. So sometimes you feel in trouble, you feel, unable to express yourself, unable to talk, unable to, be yourself. You shift you go back to your native language, your mother tongue, to give you this safety and protection. Sometimes words can never convey the true meanings. That's why there's this expression, lost in translation. The other reason, we said before that writing is an act of power, is an act of exercising power. Like speaking. The readers, the listeners, the recipients are, passive, generally speaking. Imagine you're writing to somebody in English, in their language, and then you use an Arabic expression or something and you don't translate it. This is an act of exercising double power. It's the play of power here is even more intensified here, because what they're going to do is they're going to go to the dictionary, they're going to ask you, they're going to ask people, they're going to take action. And Palestinians, we want people to take action, to boycott Israel, to do something, to help, to support, to stand up for human rights, for justice, for freedom. So pushing people to read, to ask, to Google your own words, your own expressions in your own language is, again, exercising power over them. You're controlling them. You're telling them what to do. And in part, this is an act of power. And there could be many other things. I tried to raise research issues. By the way, you could do your MA or your graduation paper on how poets sometimes use their language and in what situations, on what occasions. Be an interesting research to do. Because you could dig more. Please, speak up.
For me, using Arabic words when I write English is just because some Arabic words are more expressive
That's right.
There are things that you can't express in English because they belong to this culture. So it's better expressed in
Thank you very much. Rahaf says here, when I write, that's why I beg you, please write. You have a lot of potential, a lot of talent. Because everything we discussed in this whole course can have a totally different experience when you start writing poetry, start writing about Palestine, start writing about anything. So yeah, please. Speak up.
For me personally, when I read it, I feel like more belong to it and more warm.
There's more attachment.
I can't think myself in this place of this man. Also for a foreigner, when he reads this,
Or she.
one of the reasons to show our traditions and rootness of our traditions. The food is culture and tradition and history. So I think it's important to call food by its original name as we originally called.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that the word jibna, particularly if you I say the cheese, like when I say cheese, I imagine the melted cheese on burger sandwich. So I can't imagine the jibna, the Palestinian.
I think that's only you.
No.
There are 100 types of cheese.
No, but I say that.
I keep imagining, that cheese with holes and Tom and Jerry, That's the only thing but that's only me.
But let me complete.
Okay.
But I think that the jibna that she mentions is that for poor people, like the Palestinians who go to the inside.
It's a staple food. Yeah, staple food. Because these are farmers. They eat what they produce. Thank you. That's a very good point.
It gives a touch of suspense. For example, I don't speak Arabic and I see a foreign word. I'm like, what does that mean? I try to dig more in the text so I can understand.
So it makes you interact more with the text. Makes you nervous. Makes you, feel a little bit inferior. Oh, this guy knows more than I do. And then pushes you to do something that follows.
I don't want to be away from the text, but I think it's like the poet wants to prove that even if I am abroad and American Palestinian, but I can and I'm still connected to the.
When you go to America, not many people will be saying Gaza, by the way. They're all like Gaza, 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 Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. And yeah, it sounds cooler. There's more attachment. It's, it's not like Gaza, Palestine. Yeah, that's something common, by the way. And it's really beautiful. It's like, finally. Yeah, I talked about the poem, about Susan Abulhawa.
No, I actually find it sounds more like daily diaries. So how we can differentiate between a poem with a phrase and a daily diary?
It's number one, the shape, the way it's written, You don't write diaries like this. You write long paragraphs. And also, this is very poetic. It sounds poetic. You read it, but there is prose that can be poetic. Yeah, I know some people would object that, sorry, this is not poetry. Free verses. Yeah, it says some people still say this about Arabic free verse. They don't believe, but look at this. If some people say poetry is what, the texts that have the ability to move you, to shake you, to make you reconsider your life choices, to bring you to tears. Prose does this. But poetry has more potential to do it. Is this here? Can you feel it? Can you? I think it is there. I find also the lack of punctuation marks to be interesting. There are some here and there, but basically it's loose, chaotic. That's Israel. This is what Israel brings to the table. Chaos, lawlessness. There are no rules here. Rules of the jungle, where a foreign alien intruder is controlling every breath we take, everything we do. One more thing about the poem, Susan Abulhawa.
The shape is connected to the poem.
Even the shape, like the short lines, the long lines, shape is connected, please.
For me, I love the time references.
You like?
The time references.
Mm-hmm.
Like to show the length and to show that this story has been started earlier when the wife waked up.
So it's deeply connected to land, like the Jibna and where we get it from, and to time and place.
For me, I think it's very important to get into details, not just saying sandwich, but Jibna sandwich. Why? Because I think in this way we humanize ourselves and
Okay.
The scene when the murder, when his family make a cake and the smell of the cake. This is like to get in this form.
Very good. You humanize this. But has this prevented the soldiers from further humiliating you? The Zionist settler from, humiliating you beyond imagination. Because no matter how much you humanize yourself, what else should we do? Remember, it's not our fault. Many people would blame Palestinians. Remember, never blame the victim. Would blame us for our own plight. Hey, look up, look there. Look at the Israeli occupation.
Because for them, we're just
So how, there was this thing, I'm not sure if I can remember who did this, how many kids should be killed by Israel so Israel can realize we're human beings? How many times should Israel wage wars against us to realize that for Israelis? And that's really heartbreaking. In 2014, when Israel waged its most horrific war in decades against Palestinians, over 90% of Israeli Jews supported the war against Palestinians. What should we do? There's nothing wrong with us. We're occupied, we're fighting back, we're resisting, we're oppressed, we're brutalized. The problem is with the occupier. The problem is with the occupier. So that's why probably the grandmother in Linah's poem didn't want the young lady to overdo this kind of humanization, self-humanization. Be yourself, fight back, resist in your own way, and you're good to go. One last point, and then I'll stop here. This poem could be taken literally, but it also can be taken allegorically. This whole poem could be an allegory of Palestinians against the Israeli occupation. Look at what Palestinians, even the Palestinian, some kind of Palestinian leadership, the Palestinian Authority, they have done everything for the sake of the peace process. They've taken some privileges here and there to protect Israel, to bring safety to Israel, to prevent Palestinian resistance, to stop the freedom fighters, right? And in return, what has Israel given us back, given them back? Nothing. No matter what you do, how much you try, you will always be treated as a boy. You'll be kicked out, you'll be humiliated, dismissed, because this is what occupiers do. And I don't want to say either or. This is a personal story, but could be also allegorical, metaphorical of Palestinians. So is this an invitation to stop with the nonsense peace process? Fight back, resist in your own way, BDS, boycott, because you did anyway. You're humiliated anyway. Why not die fighting? Is this a theme? Think about it. I'll be stopping here. And if you stay back, please. If you have any question, we can talk about it. But there are probably pictures we can post on our Facebook group. These pictures, we've seen them so many times. These pictures. Look at this. Cattle cage, right? So sad. So how is Wala an allegorical poem? Also, Susan Abulhawa's poem Wala is about every Palestinian, not only every laborer. Actually, it's about every human being that ever lived under occupation and colonialism and imperialism. Thank you very much. And we'll be seeing you tomorrow for our last session, a review session, an optional review session. يعطيكم العافية. Thank you.